Hey y'all, Patrick James,
John Double Tap Britton.
the gun debate, and cliches. On the hit list, good, the bad, the ugly. So, the next cliche on the hit list is if guns are allowed.
Oh, outlawed.
Oh, if guns are outlawed, then only outlaws will have guns. Now, is this a truth?
Well, let's start with the opposing argument.
Okay.
Now, this comes from Psychology Today. Michael W. Austin, PhD. And he took a look at this claim: if guns are outlawed, then only outlaws will have guns. He said the argument's first claim is clearly false. Even if all guns were made illegal, that is, if Congress repealed the Second Amendment, many law-abiding individuals would still possess and use firearms in the United States. Police officers, members of the armed forces jump to mind, as well as those who serve in the FBI, CIA, Secret Service, among others. So if guns are outlawed, then many who are not outlaws will still have guns.
Really?
Now, let me simplify what he just said there. He's saying that if we outlawed guns, the police state would still have guns, ergo, quote-unquote, law-abiding citizens who work for the government would still be armed, not just the outlaws. Of course, there's a lot of Americans who would argue that a government that disarms its people is an outlaw government.
Well, I mean, and you see, we've got to look at what Dr. Michael Austin did there in his statement. He said if Congress repealed the Second Amendment, many law-abiding individuals would still possess and use firearms in the United States. Guess what, folks? The Second Amendment was not created to keep government officials armed with guns. The Second Amendment refers to the people. The people, we people.
And the founders themselves said that this was a protection of a natural right that exists even without government.
Amen.
The right to self-defense, the right to self-preservation. So even if they repealed the Second Amendment, would you still have a right to keep and bear arms?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now,
Unless you have a despotic government who restricts you from that right, bans the guns, throws you in prison if you make your own, which is not that hard to do these days. So what are we talking about here?
well,
So you're talking about an outlaw government that disarms its people. You're talking about a police state that is still, quote-unquote, law-abiding armed citizens.
they're not really citizens, though.
And then you're talking about the citizens who are, in fact, will be outlaws because they will be making their own guns, not to mention digging up ones that they've had buried and a few other things.
Recovering them from boating accidents various people have had over the course of many years. Listen, this is a truth.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, he goes on to admit that criminals, outlaws, would still have guns. But from his PhD perspective, it's law enforcement's job to protect you from those people.
Oh, yeah.
It's not your responsibility, even with the Second Amendment, is what he's arguing. So even with the right to keep and bear arms, it's not your responsibility to protect yourself. That's just for like hunting and stuff.
It's our ultimate responsibility to protect our natural rights.
And of course they have their own little cliched disclaimer that they always use. That they're not advocating for the abolition of all guns, while at the same time they promote countries like Japan or Australia, where it is virtually impossible to have private gun ownership of any significance.
Well, now, like in Australia, we have to kind of wind that back a little bit, because in Australia you can, but you have to leave it locked up in the locker at the gun range.
Right.
Or you have to be a politician or know a politician, related to a politician, and then you can probably take it out hunting too.
I'd say in Japan, I mean, it's virtually impossible to have
Exactly.
private gun ownership.
So there's preclusions to these states, but they've infringed upon a natural right. So when we talk about law abiding, what are we talking about with that? What are we referring to when we refer to law abiding?
Well, that depends. Are we talking about natural law or are we talking about man's law?
When we are referring to law abiding, we're referring to those that are law abiding to the natural rights of others, not man's laws. We will never be law abiding to man's laws.
No, there's way too many of them to even know, much less abide by.
Well, man's laws are nothing but the tyrant's will.
Often, but not always. There are some man's laws that are legitimate, like
speeding,
laws against murder, and things like that.
But guess what? If you follow the natural laws, then the rules that they put in place, man's laws about murder, well, it's already answered in the natural law. I mean, let's look at that, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and live by the natural law. So you don't infringe on another's natural rights, and they don't infringe on your natural rights, and you become law-abiding.
But, unfortunately, much of man's law is nothing more than one group imposing its preferences on another group.
Absolutely. Then they create tedious laws that stay on the books forever. They become too voluminous for us to even know what they are.
Yeah, there's a book that I've quoted before. It's called 3 Felonies a Day, and you should go look it up. It's an interesting read. Now it's geared more towards companies and corporations who typically commit 3 felonies a day without even knowing it, just because of all the intricacies of laws and regulations that we literally have law libraries and law clerks and paralegals and stuff to research, because even the cops and the lawyers and the judges and even the Supreme Court justices don't know them all or understand them all.
I told this to the subcommittee in Austin when I first stepped up to testify. I told them, I said, as I'm looking around this room, I don't see one law-abiding citizen in this room, including those that are sitting on the bench, because we all will break the laws of man at one point in time or another. And as I went on, I told them, I said, many of you have sped down the road today to get here. You broke the law. There are many laws that you may break throughout the course of a day, man's laws. But are you law-abiding?
You know, we've got another quote that kind of goes down that road, so we'll save that for now.
We're going to save that for another hit list video. And we'll be right there. But in the meantime, remember, if y'all want peace,
prepare for war.